Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about those rookie landing spots for running backs. Myself and Joe, and a special guest making his first appearance on Front Office Pros, which is none other than Sam Waldorf, who has his own YouTube show. But you can check it out at Sam Waldorf. We're going to be talking about our best landing spots for running backs.
Hike!
All right, Joe, so why don't you start us off? We're going to look at running back Trey Benson. What do you think is the best realistic landing spot for him?
Yeah, I think the best landing spot for Trey Benson is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, they need a running back. No Tony Pollard this year. You know, they've got Deuce Vaughn back there. He's a small back, but I think I was considering honestly Brooks for the Cowboys, but given that he's coming off the injury, I just wasn't sure if he'd be fully ready. So Trey Benson, he's a guy who can catch passes. He's kind of the do-it-all back, and I like the fit for the Cowboys who really need a running back.
So that's funny you say that, man. I actually had Benson on the Cowboys as mine as well. I thought I was going to be sneaky with that, but I guess that one may be more obvious than we are all leading on. I just think Benson is probably the best all-around back. He's one of my favorites for sure. And for me, it's like him on the Cowboys would be the dream spot because I just think he's my RB1 at the moment. I think he's the most explosive, and I think he would just stay on the field the most for them. So let's put him on the best offense with probably the most touches and just let him roll.
All right, guys, I'm going to differ from you. I'm going to stay in the NFC East, but I think the best landing spot for him is the New York Football Giants. The Giants lost Saquon Barkley in free agency, replaced him with Devin Singletary. I think we can all agree that Singletary is a good change of pace back, but he's not a true starter. Out of all the running backs in this class, I believe Benson has the best size-speed combination, and Benson will be able to go to New York and be the primary back there. And with the lack of offensive weapons, I think he'd have a lot of opportunities and relied heavily on in the run game, especially how they did so with Barkley in years past. So for me, I like Benson going to the Giants.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I for fantasy's sake, I would hope not, just because I don't think that's the best spot for him on that Giants offense. But you say Devin Singletary can't be the leading back on a team, and he basically was that for the Texans last year and was pretty fantasy relevant, Steve.
He showed flashes of it. I don't know why you don't think it would be a good offense. I mean, Barkley produced quite a lot in that offense.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, but for fantasy, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
It's going to be Daniel Jones.
For sure, do we know that? I mean,
I mean, at least for next year.
Is that a positive? Is that a positive for
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that there's opportunity there, and you know me, Joe. When it comes to opportunity with running backs, I mean, yes, I mean Benson's got the pizzazz, I'll say, but he's also would have the opportunity. I mean, Dallas is a great spot too. I just have a better. I think there's a better landing spot for a different running back I'm going to be talking about.
All right, interesting enough. I'll be curious to see who that running back is.
Let's go on to the next guy. Running back Jonathon Brooks out of Texas Longhorns. Where do you think is the best landing spot for him, Joe?
Yeah, so I was going to say the Dallas Cowboys, as I mentioned before, but decided to change it up and went with the Las Vegas Raiders. As I mentioned, I'm not sure if this guy is going to be able to start right away, but they have Zamir White who they could play right away and wait for Jonathon Brooks to fully heal up. But if he can't start right away, I don't know if whether or not he'll be ready for week 1 or not. He's kind of trending to the right direction that he possibly could. But in the event that he can't, Zamir White is there. Obviously, they lose Jacobs, who was a big part of, what the Raiders did is with the offense in general, not just the running game. Was a guy that could catch passes. And I think, Jonathon Brooks could bring a lot of big plays and a lot of electricity at that running back spot.
Yeah, for me, I kind of am going on a similar line here, but with a different team. And I'm going to go Brooks on the Cardinals. Kind of a similar reason that you were saying is I think he aligns very well with kind of the shelf life of James Conner. James Conner can be the guy this year, let Brooks kind of work into that offense. But I think an all-around back like Brooks could really kind of succeed in a similar way James Conner has been down in Arizona, where he can catch some balls, he can run it, and just kind of be a complete back for that team, and with no pressure to come out and really perform at a high level this year, because Connor's going to be just fine. I mean, he may not be a top 5 back in the league or anything, but he's a top 15 back, and he is a good player. So I think Brooks could work in very nicely there this year, and then maybe take off and be a top 12 guy for a couple seasons, or just on his rookie deal or something.
Yeah, that's an interesting fit there, Sam. For me, when it comes to Jonathon Brooks, I think he would probably be the odds-on favorite to be the top running back had he not suffered an ACL tear last season. Well, gentlemen, who performed his surgery? Does anybody know who performed his surgery?
I only know one surgeon, the Andrews dude, so I'm going to go with him.
No.
The Andrews guy that does all the surgery.
It just so happened to be Dr. Dan Cooper. And do you know who Dr. Dan Cooper is?
I do not know.
Okay.
Are you saying is he the team doctor for the Cowboys, Steve?
Yes, he's just choked. Ding, ding, ding. He is the team doctor for the Dallas Cowboys, and thus I think it would be a fantastic landing spot for him to stay in the state of Texas and go to the Dallas Cowboys. He tore his ACL last season. Based on reports, he should be available at training camp. So to me, who better? I mean, the concern is his knee. Who better to have the team doctor perform the surgery? He goes to the Cowboys. They lost Tony Pollard in free agency, like you talked about earlier, Joe. It's a huge gaping hole for the starting running back job with the Cowboys. I think once Brooks is fully recovered, we saw what he was able to do, even in the limited action that he was past season, because he didn't have much college production because Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson were there before him. I do think he's an all-around back with an immense ceiling, and so for me, I really like the fit in Dallas with a gaping hole.
Yeah, I mean, keep him in the state of Texas as well. I considered the spot for Jonathon Brooks as well, and you know how Jerry Jones like his flashy players and the speed, and that's exactly what Jonathon Brooks would bring as well.
Yeah, this is one that I think seems super obvious. So I think it's like, if it happens, we're all gonna be like, "I told you so." And if it doesn't happen, we're all going to be like, we were just joking. Like, don't worry about it. Like, no one actually meant that, but like, he'd be great on the Cowboys, man. I mean, that's the spot we all want our favorite guy to go to, because we've seen running backs just be so successful there in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Jones has always had an affinity for the speed. I mean, even back in the days back in Arkansas, Razorbacks with Darren McFadden, right? I mean, there was that buzz about him, liking Darren McFadden. So, to me, it's one of those things where it's like, if Brooks goes to the Cowboys, I don't know of any running back right now that's in first-round territory for a dynasty draft. But if he goes to the Cowboys, I feel like he creeps into the back end of the first round, right?
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking that someone doesn't creep in to 110, 111, 112, just because there's such a clog of wide receivers at the moment between like 1.9 and 2.5, whatever you want to call it. Like, everyone differs so much on that I have a feeling if, like we were saying Benson, but Brooks too, like if one of those guys goes to the Cowboys, he's going to move up some spots.
All right, so going on to our next guy. What are your guys, Joe, from the Michigan Wolverines, running back Blake Corum? What do you think is the best landing spot for him?
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk for just about everybody what we want to see, Steve, and that's Blake Corum with the Chargers, reuniting with Jim Harbaugh. Austin Eckler's out. The Chargers, I know they bring in the Gus Bus from the Ravens, but they really need another running back on this team. Jim Harbaugh loves to run the ball. He's going to upgrade that offensive line as well and kind of take the pressure off of Justin Herbert and get this running game going. And who better to do it than the guy he coached at Michigan in college? So I got Blake Corum to the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the classic spot. I stayed away from the low-hanging fruit. I assumed someone would. I obviously think that's a good fit just because he knows him and he knows the kind of player he is. The only thing I worry about slightly is that I do think his skill set kind of overlaps with Gus Edwards in a way. And for that reason, I will be bringing up someone later in the show for the Chargers. But for me, Corum, I think his personality for me I'm putting him on the New England Patriots. And I think this dude feels like a very good fit as kind of the RB2 or maybe the future starter if Ramondre leaves after his contract is up. And I think it kind of just fits, right? I mean, they have a defensive coach. They had Zeke there last year who got more work than I think anyone thought he was going to. And I like Ramondre, but I wouldn't say he has like a death grip on the starting position where he's a bell cow, Saquon Barkley type, getting 99% of the touches. So let's put Corum there, man. That dude, I think, has New England Patriots football all over him. He's a good hard worker, and I think he would fit there as kind of a 1B in that backfield.
I got to tell you, if Corum went to New England, I to be honest, I'd be pretty disappointed. I don't know. I mean, that would be a spot I would not like.
Gibson there as well.
What'd you say, Joe?
Aren't we always disappointed with the draft, man? That's the point where it's like at some time you got to think of these years past where just like these guys get just buried, and you're like, it's gonna happen to someone. We just don't know who yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he may emerge. I mean, like you said, I don't think that Ramondre Stevenson has a death grip. I just think with him and Antonio Gibson there, I just feel like that first year could be pretty tough for him to see that volume. But who knows? Maybe the following season where he would take over. Well, I have a question to pose.
Well, where do you got Blake Corum going, Steve?
Well, who has it better than us, Joe? When Blake Corum lands with the LA Chargers, back with his former head coach, Jim Harbaugh, I think the opportunity there for Corum to take over as a go-to guy in the offense is just ripe for the picking. We know that Harbaugh, like you said, Joe, likes to run basically the pound the rock. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. They currently have Gus Edwards and Isaiah Spiller as their most likely starters. I don't think either of them are that too scary to fend off to be the starter. I think Corum would be able to immediately take over, and he's so hard to take down. I think in the Harbaugh system, we saw what he's able to do. He's such a great north-south runner. So to me, I would, if he goes there, I would absolutely love that landing spot.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody would.
Yeah, I think, I agree with that. I think my only hesitation, if we're going dream landing spots, is I think there's just some players I prefer to Corum. So I think that Charger spot's a little too juicy for what his safety is, and I think I'd rather put someone flashier there.
I like it. Well, maybe this next guy is more flashy for you, Sam. How about Jaylen Wright? Joe, what do you have as your best fit for Wright?
Yeah, so Sam mentioned this landing spot earlier. I've got Jaylen Wright going to the Arizona Cardinals. As he mentioned, James Conner, he's not getting any younger. He's not long to be for the Arizona Cardinals. They need somebody in the works, and I think somebody like Jaylen Wright brings a very explosive, obviously ran really well 40 time at the combine, and also is a good receiver out of the backfield as well. So pretty good all around back, and I think Arizona Cardinals get their succession plan to James Conner.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you said. I think the Cardinals is a sneaky good spot for one of these guys. They may have to wait a year, but I think in general it could turn out to be a lot better than we think. For me, Jaylen Wright, I'm going to have him going to someone that you guys mentioned earlier, and that's going to be the Giants, man, the football Giants up there in New York. I am on the I'm not worried about Devin Singletary train, so I'm going to hop on that one.
Sam.
I am just not concerned about Devin Singletary. He's a fine player, but I think if you are reaching for the stars, or if you're drafting one of these running backs and expecting them to be a dynasty starter and maybe not stud, that might be reaching a little far. But if they can't beat out Devin Singletary, they weren't even meant for glory, man. They weren't meant to be in that league. So I think Jaylen Wright's a good fit on the Giants. I think he can kind of spell and work into the offense while he's learning there. And then if he turns into 70% Alvin Kamara, I'm never going to compare someone to Alvin Kamara because that dude's an absolute monster. But Jaylen Wright kind of has like 70% of the skill set there. So if he takes over and becomes the one in the Giants, I think there's some work to be had. Like you guys said, obviously Barkley was able to be productive, but there are obviously touches and scores. And I mean, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I don't know how it could get worse than last year for the Giants. So I think if their O-line's healthy, this spot could be a little better than people are leading on. But mostly, I just don't see Singletary as a huge threat.
I'm with you 100%, Sam. Don't listen to Joe over there about the Devin Singletary. So for me, for Jaylen Wright, my best landing spot for him is the Las Vegas Raiders. Which you know the Raiders have a thing for speed. They always have. And so Wright would fit the bill. They lost Josh Jacobs in free agency, although there's a lot of hype with Zamir White. I don't know. I mean, he's a huge, weightlifter. The guy looks like he's, just like a boulder, he's going to bulldoze people. I'm not buying that he'll be the only guy. I think they need some juice at the position. Then you enter in Jaylen Wright here, who I think would have the opportunity to take over as the 3-down back in Las Vegas. As we know, Jaylen Wright came on the scene at the combine with that electric 40 time. I believe that he could be a 3-down back. And so as a result, with him being a promising pass catcher and the ability to pass block, I think it'd be a great landing spot for the Raiders.
Yeah, I would love to see someone in Las Vegas. I kind of have been one that's been okay selling Zamir White this offseason. I think he's good, but I just don't think his value is going to last long. Maybe he gets this year, but anything past that I think is a stretch. And anyone who can really compete with him could probably earn some touches there.
I mean, regardless, they're going to have to bring in a 3rd-down back. I think I could see him primarily playing on 1st and 2nd down, but I think they would need somebody to come in as a pass catcher. Do they still have Amir Abdullah? I don't know.
They did re-sign him. I'm pretty sure I saw, but also that could just be a pure special teams move at this point. I don't think we should be. If we're not scared of Devin Singletary, we're definitely not scared of Amir Abdullah, man.
I agree with you on that.
Well, we were talking about a thumper in Zamir White. How about we talk about this next thumper and running back Braelon Allen out of Wisconsin? Joe, what's the best fit for you for him?
All right, Steve. I don't think you're going to like this, but I would like Braelon Allen with your Buffalo Bills.
Oh, boy.
The Buffalo Bills have been searching for a guy to do the short yardage goal line. Sean McDermott's that old school guy, wants to have a big back for those situations. Obviously, I know they brought Ty Johnson in, and he kind of filled that role for them last year and did pretty well. But Braelon Allen, dude's 20 years old. He is 6'2". He's 240 pounds, and I think just with the old school mentality that Sean McDermott has, being able to grab this guy later in the draft potentially would really help this Buffalo Bills offense.
When I was planning to do this show and you guys invited me, I actually had Allen going to the Bills as my player. And then as soon as Diggs got traded, I crossed that out. And I put Braelon Allen going to the Bengals instead. I just think for me, with no Diggs, I don't know if they're going to use that round 3 pick on a running back anymore. They may just be looking, now that wide receiver might go round 1. It might start to stack outwardly, and they might start taking different players, getting deeper. But I think on the Bengals, I think there's a shot. Now, it's risky, but I think that kind of defines Braelon Allen's draft profile. He's very a lot of people are like all in on Braelon Allen, or they're like, this dude is slow and he can't be anything. So I think the Bengals could be a good fit where if he beats out Zach Moss, I think he's in a very good backfield with Chase Brown there. And I really like it, but it's a risky one because for all we know, Zach Moss is he's a pro. He's not a freak. He's not a stud, but he's a good, solid pro. So I think it's risky because the touches aren't guaranteed, but the workload and role is there, as we've seen with Mixon. He would just have to beat out the other players there, but that might be worth the risk if he goes there. I think you could get him pretty affordable in rookie drafts, and it could turn out to be a monster move for your team.
For the record, Joe, I would not like that move at all.
What is Steve? I know.
No, because then I feel like the offense. Well, it's not only that, but it's just the offensive philosophy. That's my honestly concern. I don't want this to become like the Baltimore Ravens 2.0. I want scorched earth Brian Daboll style offense for Josh Allen. I don't want to see. I know that.
To do.
What's that?
Do you see what Brady likes to do when he took over? Run that ball and lessen the amount of times that Allen throws to reduce the amount of picks that he throws.
Boo! I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. So we'll have to see what happens. So I did not have Braelon Allen going to the Bills.
Well, I'm not surprised.
I think you're going to find this one interesting. I have the best landing spot for Braelon Allen is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think with him being a thumper of a running back, we've already heard Todd Bowles come out and say that he wants the workload to be cut down for Rachaad White. Rachaad White had too much of the workload. So a lot of the reason why Rachaad White was as good as he was because of the opportunity he had. I think Allen would provide a new dimension to that offense as a north-south runner. Be able to provide a lot of touchdowns in the red zone area. I don't think that Allen, in my view, will be a workhorse running back. So as a dynasty manager, I primarily would rely on his rushing upside, not his receiving. So that's why I like Tampa Bay, because they already have the receiving component with Rachaad White. So I think Braelon Allen could maximize his ability to be able to be that running guy. So to me, I like Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's definitely a very interesting spot. I would definitely be concerned on maybe the rushing availability of the share just with White there. But I don't know. I think Allen's one where it's like, if I was doing a rookie draft before the NFL draft, I probably wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. But once we know his spot, I think it could be awesome or it could be absolutely terrible. Like, watch him like go to the Ravens and you're just like, dude, that is so useless. Like, he's just going to like sit there behind Derrick Henry for 2 years. And you're like, cool, that was fun. Like, good for us.
What would you think about the Buck spot, Joe? I know you've always been critical of Rachaad White. Would you feel that would be a good move for?
I think it's an interesting idea. It's the Bucks weren't on my radar for a lot of these running backs in terms of spots, just because Rachaad White is there, and honestly, he did pretty well last year. So, I definitely think it would be interesting. It brings another dimension that they currently don't have.
Interesting. I thought because you felt like he really was that it wasn't that explosive, so I thought that you'd find that he would be.
He's not, but you give him the volume and Baker Mayfield checking it down to him out of the backfield, and he does fine.
So our next running back Marshawn Lloyd. He seems. I'll tell you what, man. He is. People are getting really excited about this guy. I don't know. It seems like anywhere I go on YouTube these days, people are talking about Marshawn Lloyd. Joe, what's the best fit for him for you?
Yeah, I've got Marshawn Lloyd to the Cleveland Browns, who obviously, Nick Chubb coming back from injury. Not sure what his timetable is going to be in terms of when he's going to be coming back this year. They have Jerome Ford as well, but I don't think they truly really believe it, and have a lot of faith in Jerome Ford. So I think and also I don't know how, like, Nick Chubb's not going to be there forever. He's coming off the injury, so I think they need somebody to kind of take over there. So I like Marshawn Lloyd to the Cleveland Browns as possible succession there.
Joe, I don't think Sam likes your pick.
No, he doesn't.
It's interesting. I will say, from the perspective of him replacing Jerome Ford, I think I get it. It just hurts my soul with Nick Chubb that I just don't know if I could stomach that. But I guess we'll see. Like, it's kind of one of those ones where, like, if Nick Chubb comes back like soonish, then all of a sudden, like, you definitely don't want anyone that's behind him. But if he takes a while to get back, just like you said, Ford doesn't have a grip on this backfield. They brought in Kareem Hunt, and he like almost outplayed him, or at least won 50% of the snaps last year. So for me, Lloyd is one that I think I don't know if I'm buying into the hype, but he just does seem like an explosive player, and he's the one I'm putting on the Chargers, man. I think I would love his style staying out there in LA. I just think he is a perfect complement to Gus Edwards out there for the Chargers with Harbaugh. He likes to play ground and pound and power football, but also, like, this is the pros, man. He's not going to run his exact same offense that he ran at Michigan because he doesn't have 4- and 5-star offensive linemen that outweigh the entire other team, shoving these guys 20 yards down the field. Like, it's not going to be as simple as it was for him to just pound the ball so consistently. And as much as like I do like JJ McCarthy as a player, referring to Harbaugh's Michigan team, Herbert is a complete different guy than McCarthy. Herbert can make throws that maybe McCarthy can develop into, but at the moment or in college, like, Herbert has a freaking cannon, man. And I just don't think that they're just going to totally reserve him to handing the ball off. They could get Easton Stick to do that. They do not need Justin Herbert to just hand it off to power backs all day.
So one interesting aspect about Marshawn Lloyd going to the Chargers is I did see that his former running back coach for USC is now on the Charger staff, if I'm not mistaken. And so I am a big believer in it's who you know. So I do think that that is a very possible situation where, I mean, I think Corum makes a lot of sense, but if not Corum, I do think Lloyd could make a ton of sense to them because of those connections and trying to figure out. Because, you know, if you got those guys in your draft room, they're pounding the table. Like, I know this guy. I can go to bat for him. I mean, he's a great player, blah, 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 blah. So I could see it. So for me, the best playing spot for Marshawn Lloyd, and we talked about this team a little bit before here, but I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. You know, he's got a great combo of elusiveness and acceleration, and I believe that Lloyd has that home run ability. I don't see him as a workhorse running back. That's my thing, but I think as a part of a committee and a complementary running back, I think he can do that. And I think he's a perfect complement for James Conner. James Conner's he's 29 years old. He has 1 year remaining in his contract. I think Lloyd and Conner can really be that lightning and thunder combination that I think could really help the Cardinals. And then once Conner's gone, you know, I would think next year, you know, Lloyd's going to have the opportunity to take over the backfield as a starter. And like I said, I don't think that he is a true workhorse running back, but if you get the opportunity, you never know, right? I mean, we didn't know if Rashad White would be, you know, with Leonard Fournette was there, and, you know, when then Fournette was gone, then he got his opportunity. So I think that's what's going to have to happen for him to get an opportunity like that. So I like the Cardinals for him.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players, especially the guys who we think are more explosive or third down backs or whatever you want to categorize certain players, like, I think the Cardinals is a pretty good spot. And like, especially when it comes to running backs, like, it's not like they're going to have to draft these guys at the beginning of the second round, man. There's going to be someone sitting there in the third and the fourth round, and someone's going to get a pretty solid, just NFL player for their team, I think, in the draft when it comes to some of these running backs.
So going to our last guy, gentlemen, we got running back Bucky Irving from Oregon. Joe, where do you want Irving to go?
Yeah, I picked Bucky Irving to go to the Baltimore Ravens. Going to stay in the AFC North there. You know, Keaton Mitchell brought a lot of explosiveness and speed to this offense. He obviously in Week 15 suffered that torn ACL. I know for running backs coming off of those ACL injuries can be tough, and a lot of times that first year coming back, they don't really perform that well. So why not add another speedster, a guy that excels in the outside zone game, and then also can be that third down pass catcher, obviously, to spell Derrick Henry with that run game. So I'd like Bucky Irving with the Ravens.
Yeah, he's kind of got a younger Justice Hill vibe kind of going on. So I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with the unknown of Keaton Mitchell. I'm actually going to put him not in the same spot, but I think we kind of are seeing eye to eye on a similar role for Irving. And I'm going to put him on the Packers. I think he looked fairly good just behind Josh Jacobs. I'm not an A.J. Dillon guy. I can't remember if they did re-sign him or
they did.
They're going to. But either way, like, he's more of a backup to Jacobs than he is a counterpart or bringing a different skill set. And I think Irvin could be a nice little third down back and kind of play, you know, like, he's never going to be Aaron Jones. I'm not going to compare someone to Aaron Jones and his skill set, but he could maybe play some of those more Aaron Jones plays or get some screens, get some swing passes, and just kind of spell in there and get some speed. I don't think anyone's really projecting Bucky Irving to have like a, 70% snap share in the NFL. So I think it's okay to put him on a team with a Derrick Henry or a Josh Jacobs. That's probably a more realistic spot for him. And those are both good offenses where maybe he maybe he's the handcuff for a couple of weeks because Henry goes down for a week or two and you get a couple spike weeks from him or, but more than likely he may just become another JJ Taylor as we all cry and hope for the upside that never was. But I think he's got a chance. If he goes to a team like the Packers or the Ravens, I like both those spots.
So I think the best location for him, and I'd be really excited about this spot, is the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. To me, he's a third down running back, was a great pass catcher. We saw what Jerick McKinnon was able to do for the Chiefs in 2022. McKinnon had 71 targets, 56 catches, 512 yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns. In this past season in Oregon, he had 56 receptions, 413 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Pacheco's not the best receiving back, and I think the Chiefs would be better served if they had a better third down running back. Insert Bucky Irving. I think that's pretty exciting. I know they signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It doesn't really matter to me. Similar to Dylan, I think he's washed. I mean, to be honest with you, no offense to you, Clyde, but I think when it comes down to it, it's like I wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire and AJ Dillon. I wanted these guys to go other teams, get a fresh slate, get a new opportunity. But you're going back to a team that barely used you. I mean, what does that say about your market? What does that say about him as a player? So I think, bringing in a guy like Bucky Irving, I think would be pretty exciting. I wouldn't necessarily love it for the Chiefs, but I would like it for Dynasty.
Yeah, I think that kind of follows the trend where we all put him on good offenses. I think that's a good spot for him. If he's going to succeed, it's going to have to be with a 20% touch volume. It's not going to be a 10 carries a game kind of thing. He's going to get 3 carries, but maybe he could catch enough balls to throw in your flex in a PPR league or bye weeks kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, like you said, him kind of being that Jerick McKinnon for that offense would make a lot of sense. But, you mentioned Pacheco. I mean, he did have 44 receptions last year, Steve. Nothing to sneeze at in terms of the receiving ability of him.
I get that. I just don't think he's as explosive. I think they could get a lot more juice if they brought some in. I mean, do you agree, Sam, with me? Or are you on the Joe end of this?
I think the realism side of me wants to say I don't know how much workload there really is for someone in Kansas City. I think Pacheco kind of took over last year, and even down the stretch, like there was a Jerick McKinnon role, but it was very reduced. And let's not forget about the rugby player. I'm just kidding. But he is there.
Hey, I mean, they just signed a multi-year deal, so it's possible.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it'll be fun. Anyone on the Chiefs is fun, man. We all know that's fun. We want everyone to go to the Chiefs all the time.
I don't know. Everyone wanted Clyde there. Everyone was so excited once they took him in the first round and just went a dud.
Or unless you're Sky Moore, too.
That's true. But we all wanted it. It just didn't work.
Right? Yeah.
That's the difference.
Well, and then we got spooked, and then didn't go for Rashee Rice, and then Rashee Rice did what he did.
And then he did what he did.
Yeah,
that's true. Well, with that, that goes over our running back landing spots, our best ones for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Sam, thanks so much for joining the show today. Where can others find your great work?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Hopefully, this is not the last time. You can check me out on YouTube. Just look up Sam Waldorf. It's just my name. I'm sure you'll see a bright, shining face staring right at you. Feel free to dim the screen down, but thank you guys for having me.
Oh, absolutely. If you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button over on his channel. You can also find him on Twitter as well, as you can find us. Coming up in our next episode, we're going to be talking about wide receiver landing spots, what's our best fits, and then we're not stopping there. We got tight ends and IDPs the rest of the way. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.